Hey guys, bear with me. It's Valerie here. I'm going to train you for TELPAS for March 2nd. I am not trying to make everybody dizzy looking through the training manual. This is take two for me. I was in the middle of, I was so close to finishing the training and I felt like I was just making too many errors. So I just wanted to start over. So hopefully my brain is clear. Hopefully I will convey things and communicate effectively with you guys. But if all else fails, please, please, please ask questions. We're going to look at two things, two sources of information to make sure that you're trained and ready to go for Wednesday. First of all, thank you for being part of the TELPAS testing staff. Typically testing, we've involved 2 and 2.5 weeks, if not more, once you count in all the kids that we have to do makeups for and things like that. We're going to take care of everybody but juniors on Wednesday. So we're hoping this goes well. If you'll just follow your checklist and know your manual, we're going to hit the high points on the things you really need to know and understand. And then ask questions if you have them. You'll have Monday and Tuesday to ask questions, plus anything you want to email me this weekend. I will do my best to convey. And I know sometimes you just need to stop and ask. So I'm available for that. I would rather you not call on the phone, come by in person or send me an email, okay? All right, you got the attachment in your emails about the fact that you were going to be doing this test. So the manuals are in there. Notice, remember, just like always, the manual does not ever, it never replaces training. Never replaces training. Okay, they go hand in hand, and it's up to you to know the content of the manual. So as we attend training, we're going to go through the various roles, responsibilities, what you need. You've already signed and reviewed your oath, and then we're going to talk about preparing for testing. The biggest thing I want you to know on this page, it talks about the directions and the delivery of what we're giving kids. TELPAS is the only test where you can deviate from the bold print direction. And when I say that, we're trying to have this measures the English proficiency of our students. So sentences are shorter, language is simpler, instructions are more explicit, but you're able and permitted to adjust the language and specificity of the administration directions to the level of English proficiency of the students in your test session. So if they look like they don't understand what you're saying, you can say, you understand? And if they look clueless, then try to say it in a different way for them to get what you're saying. And basically, your part is getting them to sign in, telling them this is going to measure how they're doing in English. So we want them to do their best, because if they don't like taking this test and they've been here forever, and they are pretty proficient in English, then they need to display that. Because until you get advanced high on all your writings, all the tests for TELPAS, and you pass all your STAR tests, they're going to keep taking this test. And I don't know that they always understand that. Just remember, if you are paraphrasing or simplifying or doing anything to the directions to help students understand, you can never change the substance of the information contained. You're also able to translate it. We're going to try to have translators available, accessible, but it may be like 1 for 4 rooms or 1 for 5 rooms. So just on our language, we have a majority of our Spanish teachers are giving this exam, and they're all in lower A. They obviously can translate for themselves. So I may not have a translator on their hallway, because we might need them in another area. And a translator will also just be the hallway person, or it could be the person we have set to help with computers. All right. The instructions you read aloud to students will help them understand the nature of the test. And it, also it reminds them that the difficulty varies depending on the range of difficulty that helps measure their progress. So it may be easier for some kids, it may be harder for some kids. And notice down here, more difficult test questions and selections are interspersed with easier ones, so that the most difficult questions and selections are not grouped together. So if a student is so concerned because it's hard and they don't get it, just have them to do the best they can, and likely an easier question will follow if they struggled with one prior. I'm not sure if that even makes sense to everybody, but basically it tries to relegate the level of difficulty with how a student responds. Okay. All right, let's look at seating real quick. You're going to prepare the testing environment, which we know nothing should hinder a kid on the walls. I just want to say this real fast. You are going to be in rooms where this shouldn't be a problem. We are using math rooms and a couple of science rooms and language rooms. So there's nothing to cover on the walls. It's all about measuring English proficiency. So you should be set. But when it comes to seating, you're going to fill out your seating chart using the number that's on your roster for the student. But this is a little different. Okay, they give us a couple of scenarios here, and I just need you to think outside the box of me. Everybody's roster is 19 or 18 students. There's no more than 19 kids on a TELPAS roster because students are equipped with headsets. On the listening and speaking, they will have to talk into that microphone. They're not going to talk loud. They can talk really soft and it's still measured, but they need to feel like they can say that. So they need as much privacy as possible is what it says on the checklist. Okay, so Aaron and I were discussing this today. If I was in a room that had like 30 desks, I would make sure I had as few rows as possible. I'm not saying it has to be exactly like this, but I would suggest 5 rows of 6, if you can handle that. And then I would zigzag my kids and make those rows really as far apart as I can, okay? If you're in L Hall, it might be a better idea to do a horseshoe. It might be a better idea in an A Hall room to do a horseshoe, where you are facilitating in here, and you may not be able to sit 2 and 3 desks, but you can space them out where kids can be more confident in what they are doing and not distracted by each other. We're trying to give them privacy to feel confident to be able to answer these questions. I hope that helps. All right. Distribution of materials. We're going to give you your checklist, your things in your bucket. They include your test ticket, scratch paper, pencils, your headset, headphones. And you can remember headphones, this will be on your checklist, but you can go ahead and have the tickets, the scratch paper, pencils, headsets. That can all be on the desk when kids arrive so they can know where to sit. And then they'll put their Chromebook on there and restart it. Nothing else needs to be there. Okay. Also, the test tickets as well as session ID papers. We'll have 2 session ID papers. You only need to start them with reading when you are ready to give the test. Session ID papers do not start out on the desk when students arrive. That will be on your verification form. When do you hand out the session ID for reading? When do you hand out the session ID for listening and speaking? It's very important, so make sure you hear me on that. I'm probably going to have a thing about desks. Desks should be arranged to give the most privacy to the student, okay? And maybe can you paraphrase directions as long as you don't take away from the content. So I'm just telling you, those are some things that are probably going to come up. And if they don't, then you're just going to say, well, I already know. She talked about it and it's good. Okay, session ID is what allows the student to sign into the test. That's why we don't give it out ahead of time. Okay, we're going to skip ahead to page 30. It talks about test administration directions and how kids are going to launch the secure browser. You're going to do your checklist, okay? We're worried about the bold print. So on 31, this is where you'll begin reading to kids, okay? I'm going to tell you the reading portion as well as the second piece, the listening, speaking, have the same directions until the end of them. They all speak about why they do the test. And notice this says 6 through 12. Pay attention to that. Here's how we log into the computer. When you're ready to do this part, make sure everyone will start out with the reading session ID at the same time. That's when you're ready to read directions in the manual beginning on page 31, and they are marked. When you're ready to read on page 31, make sure you hand out the reading session ID. Tell them not to use it until they're told to do so. They'll use it when they get down to here. I've provided you with a session ID. Okay? Moving on. On this page, it says now you'll see a screen that allows you to verify the text-to-speech tool. Put your headphones on, click the speaker, and listen. On the reading test, there may be a few questions where they have to listen because they're field test questions that they're embedding in there. I know that's not listening speaking, but it's more about maybe like, I really don't know. This is a new part for us. We've also been told that some kids did not have to use their headphones at all on reading, so don't panic. Just be supportive, okay? So you'll continue, and the final statements you'll read are on page 35, but make sure you read the correct box. We are not an elementary school, so we make sure to read 6 through 12. Now, on the page that follows, it just reminds you that you cannot answer any questions related to the actual content of the test itself. So if a student asks a question that you're not allowed to answer because it's about content, you can simply say, I can't answer that for you, do the best you can. All right, so that got us through the reading test, okay? On your checklist, it's going to say, when students are ready to submit their reading test, you will take up their reading session ID, help them submit, and then you will give them their listening and speaking ID and guide them to sign in using the instructions that begin on page 38, which is also marked. In the listening and speaking directions, you'll see a red post-it on page 40. This simply marks where the directions change or how they are different from reading to listening and speaking. So from reading to listening and speaking, on the listening and speaking test, this is where you may not be able to paraphrase so much, okay? When you start reading, listening, and speaking, up until you get to this point, you're just helping them get signed on the test and get started. When you get to this paragraph, the audio playback check, that is where it changes and you're addressing things that were specifically for listening and speaking, okay? Make sure you read over this. This is how they know that what they are saying is getting recorded. All right. Once they finish the reading part, the listening speaking part, I apologize. When they finish the reading part, you'll help them submit, give them the session ID for listening speaking. And these are the final directions in listening speaking. They are the same as reading. Remember to do the 6 through 12. Once they finish the second piece of the TELPAS administration in your room, they will raise their hands. You will help them submit, take up their testing materials, but they cannot, hear me now, no one is allowed to work on anything when they finish TELPAS electronically. Really, they don't need to work on anything at all until they just need to lay the little heads down. And once your testing bucket has been returned to L109, the testing office, then they will be able to get their phones back and work on things in your room. We need to maintain the silence and the integrity for other students as they're working, for you to be able to record things and listen and manage what's going on in the room. All right, so real quick, we're going to glance at the checklist. On the first page, it talks about you've got to pick up your stuff by 8:05. Guys, there's no way we can be ready for kids if we don't have everything picked up by 8:05. There's just no way. You're going to pick up their phones when they come in. When you get to the room, you're going to go through your stuff. Remember, nothing can be helping, hindering. I've already told you that's going to be taken care of. You're going to place the do not disturb sign on the door, room log outside of the door, and then you can put student tickets, pencil, scratch paper, headphones, all on their desk so they can easily get to their seat and know where they sit. Do not put the session ID on the desk. Do not do it. you will not distribute the session ID for reading or listening and speaking until you're ready to read directions. And guess what? That's the only time you will hand one out to the class. And that's the orange paper. The orange paper is the reading session ID. Okay? Says those begin on page 31. You'll guide students through the directions on page 38 for listening and speaking after you help them submit their reading test. So that is when they get the session ID for that one. One session ID at a time, one piece of TELPAS at a time. Orange paper is what they start with. When you're ready to read from the manual, distribute the orange paper. All right, and then this guides you through a recording the start time. And at 10 o'clock, you're gonna highlight the names that are missing on your roster. That can also just be writing absent and drawing a line through all the times that we're asking you to document. Make sure you record the start time on your seating chart, attendance sheet, and your room log. We need it in all three places, and we need you starting. We need you starting 9 o'clock if possible. It might be 9:15 for others. I need to back something up, so just bear with me for a second. Up here, this thing that says Chromebook checkouts for testing, there's a sheet in your bucket. If a student's Chromebook does not have the Secure Testing Browser app once they've restarted it, then there may be something that we need to adjust with their computer. You try restarting that computer again, one last good college try, see if that appears. If it doesn't, then write their information on that checkout sheet in between your hallway person and the testing office. If you have two people in your room, which I don't think you're going to, but if you happen to, send the second person to us, but do not send the kids to us for the Chromebook. Do not send the kids to us for the Chromebook. And then we will make sure that kids can start. Okay, so it may take a little bit longer to start because of this, but we need to go 9:15, start speeding through stuff and get it done efficiently but effectively so that we can begin. There's a lot of things to take care of, okay? So back to where we were. When you're ready to read from your manual for reading, you will distribute the orange reading session sheet, okay? Once all that's started, the kids are going, you're going to confirm your attendance, because once you have started in that room, we're not going to let a kid come in and begin testing. And that means actual start the test. If you're still doing directions and a kid comes in, get them going, get them caught up, and let's all be a part of this. Okay? When students are testing, actively monitor. Your job today is to know your room. After inputting your attendance, do not get on the computer or your cell phone. Please do not engage in any activity that deviates from monitoring. I'm also going to say you need to have your attendance. Remember, you're going to do it two places. You're going to do it electronically, and you're going to do it on your attendance sheet. And we'll come pick up things for kids that are absent, so it won't be mixed up with all your sheets. Okay? All right. Anytime somebody comes in, remember they need to sign the room log. It's required and has to be kept on file from the state. Sorry, it looked like lightning in here. The lights are going on and off because I've been still. Active monitoring, helping kids, guiding them through, being really quiet. It's all part of it. When a student's ready to submit their reading TELPAS, and could someone be finished in a reading TELPAS within 45 minutes to an hour? Yeah. I'm just going to tell you, if somebody is really proficient in reading and they've been here a while and they don't really struggle as much with the English language, maybe our only struggle is STAR. Maybe that's what's really keeping them under the LPAC umbrella as a LEP student. Then they could, okay? So it is likely that you will have some kids finish both tests and just having a nap time until we're ready to move forward, because we don't need to have kids noisy in this room. We need to have things carefully monitored. Once they finish, they can just put their head down and close their computer. All right, so when you're ready, first part, reading TELPAS. Reading TELPAS is done. You're going to help the kids submit. You're going to record the finish time for their reading TELPAS on their ticket and on the roster. You can just put an R in the time. And on your roster, it has a column for finish time for reading. Then you're going to pick up that reading session ID. You're going to pick up the orange sheet, okay? And then you're going to guide the students in beginning their listening and speaking TELPAS. The instructions are on begin on 38, and they begin to be different on page 40, okay? In guiding students in beginning their listening and speaking TELPAS, you also have to give them the listening and speaking TELPAS session ID. And it will be on pink. The instructions for listening and speaking begin on page 38. They are the same exactly as reading all the way to page 40. So if you need to summarize some things for them, understood, take care of it, okay? Ask the students to raise their hand for you to help guide them through the process of listening and speaking to submit when they're ready to submit. All right, let's just scroll down here real quick. I know nothing seems to be real quick and it's the end of the day, so I hope I haven't just drug on. Lunch instructions. Majority of TELPAS students will eat third lunch. Students still testing at 1 o'clock will be picked up from each room for a silent monitored lunch, because as long as they are testing, they can't talk. Please have those students place their ticket and listening and speaking sheets in their Chromebook and close the lid. There is a pause button. It is not the submit button, okay? Guide students in finding it, pause it, put the sheets inside, close the computer. Students may have to sign in again when they return. Now, the other thing I need you to know is that there may be more lunch instructions, like it's very likely you're going to have to drop your kids off for lunch and pick them up. Please be on time. Please be on time. The biggest thing I can tell you about lunch is don't go anywhere if you still have students that haven't picked up that aren't finished, and be on time with whatever the time provided to go to lunch is. That will probably be on your form too. I keep saying things will be on your form. I'm about to draft it and send it out. All right, so when you're ready to turn in, make sure you followed these procedures. Work with hall people as well as your neighbors that have finished to get rooms covered so y'all can get your stuff down to L109. We cannot move until we have everything. And you cannot allow students to be on their computer or on any electronic device until your bucket's been returned. Guys, if you have questions, it's a lot. I know it's a lot. Watch it twice. Go over your materials. They're both going to be attached again to the next email so that you have them. Shoot me an email this weekend. Come by on Monday, but know your material. Know your material, okay? Try not to have phone calls about it because you may be interrupting somebody that is in here, but emails and come to the room, come to the room, or send me an email. I will answer it as quickly as I can, but phone calls, unless it is an emergency, we need to reserve phone calls for emergencies on test day. But come by and get the explanation you need. Send me an email, get the explanation you need. I really appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend. See you soon.